Namo Buddhai, Bhante and friends. So I thought what I would like to do is tell a bit of a story. I've only got 7 minutes. I'll do my best. But in that way, what I want to do is evoke something of India and something of the theme of this morning. And I want to do this by telling you about a man who took Buddhism out into the world like no other. His name was Piyadasi. Historians agree that his was the most successful mission in taking Buddhism out into the world, probably the most successful of any single individual of any religion in human history. His activity has been called one of the brightest interludes in the troubled history of mankind. We know him as Emperor Ashoka. Though it wasn't until, I think, early in the 20th century that scholars worked out that Piyadasi and Ashoka were the same man. I think he's more like the figure of Angulimala in the Pali Canon rather than the archetype of the Dhamma Raja, the righteous king. And I say that because there are hints of horribly dark deeds connected with his accession to the throne and his early conquests of his kingship, leading up to his conversion to Buddhism after the Battle of Kalinga in modern-day Orissa. The legendary accounts speak of him seeing the carnage of that battlefield in Kalinga and renouncing violence. But there's evidence to suggest that his complete conversion led up to this and took a little while longer, perhaps over 2 years of reflection. But that led him to write on one of his famous rock-carved edicts, "The beating of the war drums has changed into the beat of the drum of the Dhamma." So how did he take the Dhamma out into the world? 2 things are worth noting. Firstly, he sent envoys. He would dispatch monks in groups of 5. He would send ambassadors, his own son, Rahul, and daughter, Sanghamitra, and also a kind of Dhamma minister that were called Dhamma Mahamatras, kind of Dhamma officers, and they would go out all over India and beyond. And secondly, he kept the message simple. It was aimed mainly at the lay population, exhorting them to support the Bhikkhu Sangha, if it was already present, but also to tolerate and support other sects, and giving a strong and simple message of ethics, generosity, and non-violence. One of the modern histories says that if the Buddha was the cloud, Ashoka was the rain. But as we know, Buddhism declined and eventually disappeared from India. And with a bit of poetic license, I want to borrow from the Arthurian Grail myth and give a kind of mythic history that if we see Ashoka, he was the king who held the Grail, and as his influence declined, there was the steady rise in the Brahminical caste system. For the poorest communities of India, it was as if the land became stricken with drought and sickness, and remained so for more than 1,000 years. Until Babasaheb Ambedkar, in an echo of Percival maybe, rediscovered the Grail by understanding the vision of the Buddha, that all men and women are born equal, and that they all have the chance to choose their destiny and make something of their life for the benefit of all. Living at the bottom of the caste system still directly affects 200 million people in India today. Of those, some 20 million, probably more, have converted to Buddhism since 1956. Of those, we have not far short of 2,000 asking for ordination into our order. In other words, the scale of our work is small compared to the context, but perhaps not insignificant. The Dhamma is a training that can produce outstanding individuals. This is the level it works at. We create ourselves, and this work is best done in cohesive, intense settings. You can't guarantee the creation of these individuals, but you can create the circumstances and the opportunities. where they are more likely to arise. And outstanding individuals can in time make a huge impact on societies and communities. And I really believe that training for ordination and being an order member can give us the best chance of becoming more than ourselves, certainly compared to anything I've come across before or since. And I strongly believe this to be true of our order in India. It gives us the practices to do this work and crucially lays the whole framework on the basis of shunyata, that life is a deep mystery of simultaneous arising and ceasing, incomprehensible to the normal functioning of our minds, and that seeing into this leads to a deeply satisfying freedom. My request today is to ask for your help in supporting the men's and women's ordination teams that are undertaking this training, and a good proportion of them are here with us today from India. Firstly, a heartfelt thank you from them and us to all of you who are already supporting this work. There's about 140 order members altogether who are doing that and making regular contributions of anything from £3 a month to 300. We've also had a lot of contributions from centres, from groups and from many mitras. What we're asking on this convention is for the final 50. That is, another 50 order members to help us with a regular standing order. I want to say as well that there is an urgency to this. I don't mean to kind of be a scaremonger, but there is an urgency to my request today, and that is because there's only enough money to continue to fully fund this work until the end of this year. And it's already difficult for those teams, both teams, to meet the demand for training without even thinking of making those teams any smaller. Our project, if you like, is to fill the funding gap while we and they find ways of fully supporting themselves from within India over the next 3 to 5 years. And this fundraising in India has already begun. So my request is, can you be one of the final 50 to help us prevent this shortfall? That's my request today. There's now over 400 order members in India, and there have been women's and men's ordinations this year. In particular, the number of women Dharmacharinis has gone up. I think 4 years ago it was 55, according to Jnanashuri, and now I think today it's 103. And it makes such a difference to them if we can help support their work in training these men and women to join our order, and in that way help continue the revival of the Buddha's teaching in the land of his birth. So, thank you.